Hey there, it is Tom here on behalf of Indie Structural Productions once again, and we are continuing on with the Great Guitar Build-Off / Anniversary build. I have no issues with you using the chapter markers to kind of skip around the video a little bit, as long as you find the content that you're looking for. This time we're going to be working on, well, whatever it says in the title. Seeing as we have the neck glued up, and the next thing that we're going to do once we remove the clamps is going to sand down everything in preparation for staining. Now, we're going to have basically 3 different stain jobs going on. We're going to have the carving, then we're going to have the top and the back, and then we're going to have the side and the neck. So those are all going to be different color. But I don't want any of the brown to get into, well, the carving stuff, and vice versa. But it's going to be much easier for me to do the red now, and then sand the top and sand off any of the overspill red that there might be, rather than vice versa, because sanding around here to get brown off would be a nightmare. So to that end, I'm gonna start doing the base coat of red. Let's get to it. The very edges and corners I need to be really careful of, because I don't want there to be bleed onto the actual top here. Because any bleed that there is, I'll have to go back and fix. The bigger and wider areas, they're completely fine. I have no issues with that. It's just when I get to anywhere near any edges or corners or anything like that, I really need to start being very careful with how much stain I put on. Especially because this is red. It has a tendency of being a very potent pigment. Didn't have this issue when I did the original, because the original was painted using some miniature paints instead of stained like I am now. So I'm going to take my time with this. I don't want to rush it. I don't want to ruin it. Kind of a shame if all the hard work were for naught. Trying not to add this too wet, because I don't want it seeping through the grain. There are places it's not supposed to go to, little by little. It's stressful, ever so slightly. Why do I stress about everything? Seriously. Need to learn to relax, take things easy. It's not the end of the world here. I know what I'm doing. As long as I just remain patient, take my time with this, do it properly. When I start rushing, that's when I start making mistakes. Got it seeping through a little bit on the grain there. Yeah, I think I'm gonna, because there's gonna be 2 layers of red. So it's this red, and then sand back the very tops of things, and then start putting in like highlights. So just to bring a bit more dimensionality out of this. But I'm going to do that after the top has otherwise been done. I'll do the top until the very final point. I'll do the final red, and then I'll do the amber on the top. This looks pretty killer, you gotta admit. Already at this point, I am really digging it. You need to crack a window though, because I forgot to do that, and ventilation is key when working with spirit-based things. Alrighty, so I had to do a little bit of chiseling out to get this pickup in place, but what I have noticed now with these covered pickups is that they will not go past a certain point. And I can see that they do fan out ever so slightly, and because these pockets are pretty snug, it looks like I might need to do a little bit of finessing to get these to go in nicely. Let's have a look, putting this in the right way, and yeah, it's a little snug. So, ooh, is it going in? No, it's not. All right, I don't usually have covered pickups, or I usually don't do covered pickups a whole lot, so haven't had this issue before. Yeah, so I'm gonna need to ever so slightly open these up. I think it's not by a lot, like it's just there and there. So I'll have to open these up ever so slightly. How I do that though is gonna be, I mean, these do go in the wrong way. So I could try and just use a file to kind of grind down the edge there a little bit, but whether or not I want to do that is another thing. Let's have a look if I can press that. Okay, now I gave it a little bit of a squeeze. I don't recommend you do that, but let's see if that helped matters. Okay. Now it seems like it's binding on the sides of it are going in fine, but it's just binding on the corners here. So I am gonna use this. How about now? Voila. It's going in. It's pretty tight, so I'm just gonna open those up ever so slightly more, do the same thing on this side, and then we should be pretty good. Okay, so we are about to start fine sanding this beauty. And now is the time when we start looking at dents that need to be steamed out or otherwise stuff like that. And we are also going to wet the grain in preparation for stain. What that does is, well, raises the grain, which then we're gonna sand back. We're gonna keep doing that up until the grain doesn't raise anymore. And that's gonna give a far superior finish to what we're doing. Now, I noticed now there were a couple of dents on the back here, so I'm gonna address those real quick, steam them out. Fortunately, birch takes a steaming very well, so this is a very quick process. In a sense, it's a bit of a pain to have wood that is softer, because then it is more prone to, well, dents and stuff like that. But I think that is all of them now. And we can move on to, well, what I was talking about, which is wetting the grain. I'm not going to do the already stained bits because why would I? Here we go. And this is also the point at which I get to see if there are any sort of scratches or anything that I might have missed while doing previous sanding stuff. Everything kind of comes up now. Doing this will also, while it does grant a much better finish, it will also very quickly show if there are any problem areas that you really need to attend to. And no, I'm not putting on enough water to damage the guitar or anything like that. It's not like I'm drenching the thing. Just enough to kind of raise that grain a little bit. But boy howdy, is this gonna look cool. Somebody commented that they don't remember the last time they've heard anybody use boy howdy. And it took them back. Honestly, I don't know where that came from in my own commentary of what I'm doing. Just kind of happened. Not like I use that on the regular, but funny. Funny the things you say when you're on camera. This also gives us a brief glimpse at what the figuring looks like on the flame, on the birch. So here we go. Let's check this out. Yep, it's gonna be stunning. That is for sure. And the front, now this I might need to do a bit carefully as to not move the stain around. I mean, it's spirit-based, it shouldn't grab onto the water, but I'm not taking my chances at this point. Look at that flame. Wow, that's pretty cool. I need to get a better spritz bottle. It's not really spitting out water all that well. All right, we're gonna let that completely dry off before coming back to sand the whole lot. And we're gonna keep going back and forth up until the grain doesn't really raise all that much anymore. And then we'll get to staining the rest. And I am really looking forward. It's gonna be a stunning guitar, I hope. So I'm just gonna get around to sanding that. I'm gonna move from, let's see. I'm gonna try and see if 320 is gonna be fine. If not, then I'm gonna go to 240 320 up until 400, and wet the grain, see how things go. If things look good, we're going to move on to staining. If not, we'll wet the grain, keep going at it. I'm going to pop my machine head back on. It's great for working on stuff like this. So I'm going to do that, drink my coffee, sand the guitar, enjoy some good tunes, and yeah, see you probably in the staining stage. So, sanding took a while, and my camera died. Almost my camera died. My SD card got full, and my other card was already full and importing files on the computer. So, yeah, got everything sanded. Everything's up until about, what is this? This is about 600 grit or so. I've been testing out these Kovacs foam padded sanding pads. They're great. They're phenomenal. So now I've gone through all the grits and I've gotten them to the equivalent of what looks like to be 600-ish, which is overkill, but you know, nice. Anywho, but now I haven't talked about the back plates. So I decided that just normal back plates were kind of boring, so I kind of excavated about a something-eth of a mil out of the middle of both of these, got like little frames. I don't know why. Way too much effort. But anywho, time to put in the number. So with every guitar I make hand engraved numbering, and this one is number 0029. It's a shame. It would have been so cool if this was 30, because then it would have been like, well, yeah, would have been cool. But anywho, what you gonna do? Fresh scalpel blade here. Zeros zeroed out. Now, yes, I'm fully aware that I could just get like these stamped out or something, but I kind of like doing the engraving bit, and it's a small, you know, added touch to a fully handmade instrument. The lettering isn't always going to be perfect. It rarely is, but also kind of adds to it a little bit. So there we go. 0029. Woohoo! Everything's sanded. Let's get to staining. So I'm going to clean the stuff up and we'll prep for stain. Okay, now before we can get into actually staining anything, we have to do some masking. And essentially, it's going little by little. What I am masking up here is the binding that I want to keep natural. So on the body, that's the faux binding from the top and the back. On the fretboard, it's the actual binding. And on the headstock, it is the headstock plate. So I want to keep those just a natural color with no stain on them, which means that just carefully masking up to the line and then burnishing the tape down with my fingernail so that the stain won't actually leak through from the seams. Now, this is more than enough to prevent your stain from leaking through. If you just do a proper job, you should be just fine. And another thing that helps is just moving the stain from the middle to the edges and not putting on too much stain at a time, because we don't want to soak everything up, especially with like really dry wood. It'll just suck up the stain and move through the fibers. So that's what I was worried with the carving here, but that turned out pretty good. So I'm hoping that I can do the same now with the upcoming stain. I have my little cheat sheet here. So we're going to do brown, and they're going to let that cure completely. Then we're going to sand that. For the most part, we're going to sand most of that away just so that there's enough in the figuring, so the flame. And then on the mahogany and the neck, we're going to apply black. And then on the top, back, and headstock, we are going to apply orange mixed with brown. And then that is still going to get a very light sand and amber on top. And before we do the amber, we do the light sanding of the orange-brown mixture, and a very light sand on the sort of highlight areas of the carving. And, well, actually, then we're going to do the crimson red for the carving, and then we're going to do the amber for the top and back. A fair few processes, but this is a very special guitar, so you can't just have any run-of-the-mill stain job on it. I want to do something a bit more unique. And even though the neck and the mahogany here, they're going to get, what did I call it? Aged iron is the closest thing I have to that in my own, you know, swath of colors, or my color palette for builds. But even so, I'm not going to do it exactly the same. It's going to be a little bit different in application. Hopefully, that will all pull together for something very cool. And I don't know if I've talked about it yet, but as the original is relict, I decided that I'm not going to do that for this one. I'm going to see how it looks with, you know, a nice clean finish combined with, you know, the aged hardware. If it looks weird, then we might do some relicing after the fact. But at least for the time being, we're going to keep it not relict. I'm focusing on just the binding. I'm going to cut this up so I can show you the rest of what I'm going to do here. So burnish down on the side where the masking tape properly sits, and then the edge of it so that I don't get anything seeping through from cracks over here. Now remember, we're still going to sand down the edge to get that faux binding effect. So no worries here if it does spill ever so slightly, because we haven't done any roundovers whatsoever yet. That comes later. So I'm going to keep trimming this up, and then we're going to start applying stain. Ooh, scary. All right, see you in a bit.